Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Red Pill Garage. On today's episode, I'm going to show you how I professionally decarbonise a car's engine and clean the fuel injectors at the same time. And this is my carbon clean machine. It's actually manufactured by a company called Motorvac Technologies, and this is the most technologically advanced method available for cleaning harmful fuel system contaminants from petrol engines. It's a self-contained cleaning system designed to connect to any petrol or diesel engine. Once a unit is connected, it temporarily replaces the regular fuel supply with a mixture of petrol and the specially formulated carbon clean detergent. With the engine idling, the unit pumps the petrol detergent mixture through the engine's fuel system. As the mixture passes through the vehicle's fuel system, it loosens and dissolves accumulated deposits, which then pass harmlessly out through the exhaust system or are removed by the unit's fuel filter. Removing contaminants from the combustion chamber creates a more even burn of fuel, which improves horsepower, increases fuel economy, and reduces exhaust emissions. And I recommend my customers getting this done every 12 months. Okay, let's take a closer look at my carbon clean machine. We have our output hose, our red hose, and that connects to the input side of the vehicle's engine fuel system, and the black one connects to the return side of the vehicle's engine fuel system. Then we have our battery cables, and here we have a vacuum gauge to measure engine vacuum, fuel pressure gauge, and a fuel pressure regulator to regulate fuel pressure. And here we have the service fuel tank, which will be temporarily replacing the vehicle's fuel tank. And here's our vacuum hose that's connected to our vacuum gauge if we want to measure engine vacuum, and our fuel filter. And that's the pressure sprayer hose, which connects to the reusable pressure sprayer. And the sprayer hose itself has a series of holes, so when I use that down through the intake manifold, it sprays the detergent in different directions, so it covers all areas of the intake manifold, the runners and ports. Now I've stuck a couple of pins in the hose so you guys can see the position of those holes there. Give you some sort of an idea. And the other end of that hose connects up to the pressure sprayer nozzle. And then I'll be placing 200 ml of the cleaning detergent and then filling the bottle with compressed air. And these two items here are measuring cylinders. Then we have our cleaning detergents, the MV3 and MV4, a bottle of injector cleaner that I pour down the fuel tank, and a mass airflow sensor cleaner as well that I spray on the mass airflow sensor. And of course our safety glasses, a torch, electric screwdriver, a female torque socket, a 10mm socket, extension bar and ratchet, a couple of screwdrivers and flexible driver, and a trim removing tool. Okay, these are all the different fuel line adapters that I use for various makes and models of cars, but on today's particular car, the Toyota Yaris, I'll only be using these two here. And this hose here, as you can see, it's got a lip on it. That's the hose that we're going to connect to the output hose on the carbon clean service machine, which is the red hose. Okay, before I start on the first phase of this carbon clean and injector clean service, I just wanted to quickly show you guys the carbon buildup in the throttle body of this particular car after 12 months of driving. I actually cleaned this about a year ago, and then we can see how dirty it is after 12 months of driving. So I'm just going to remove the air cleaner lid and the air filter. You can see the air filter is pretty clean. I actually serviced this car last week. Okay, that's our throttle body there. It's actually a fly-by-wire system. As you can see, there's no cable on the side of that throttle body. It's got the fly-by-wire motor on it. So we need to get that to open up, and by doing that I'll jam that throttle pedal down to the floor, then turn the ignition on to activate the fly-by-wire system so that throttle plate can open up. And as you can see, that's fully open now. And you can see that thin film of carbon build up, that black stuff, around the circumference of that throttle body. Okay, now that the engine has reached its normal operating temperature, we can start to remove the engine beauty cover. Heat is a critical component of the cleaning process. Without it, we can't do a good job. Okay, now I'm going to look for the fuel system type on this car. That's the fuel rail and that's the fuel injector. So this is a port fuel injected system. Now I'm going to follow the fuel line, and it's a returnless fuel system, so there's no dedicated return fuel line back to the fuel tank. And that's the locking coupling that we need to remove. And we can see that says fuel on that fuel hose there. Just to confirm, we're going to remove the correct component. And that's what we're going to take off. Okay, now that the plastic coupling's off, I have to release the fuel pressure out of the fuel tank. Okay, next I'll be disconnecting the fuel hose, also known as a push lock fuel line. And it's just a matter of pushing in those two blue tabs, and then the hose should just slide straight off. Okay, I'm just going to place a rag behind that fuel line as the engine is pretty hot. Now I'm going to select the correct fuel hose adapter and make sure that matches up with the fuel line on the car, and you can see the lip there. And next we're going to connect the fuel hose to the adapter. Make sure that's tight, and that's the fuel hose coming from the fuel tank. And we're going to connect that to the return hose of the carbon clean machine. You can see there it says return. So that's the fuel coming from the fuel tank into the carbon clean machine. Now what we want to do now is to fill that tank at the back of the machine to the number 4 you see there, being a 4-cylinder vehicle. And I'll be temporarily replacing the vehicle's fuel supply. So in other words, the car will be running off the carbon clean machine, not its own fuel supply from its own fuel tank. Okay, next is the mixing ratio. On a 4-cylinder car like this, it's 30 mils per cylinder. So I'll be pouring in 120 mils in the measuring cylinder, and that's going to go into the carbon clean machine tank. Okay, next I'll be using the MV4 detergent, and I've got to fill up that measuring cylinder twice. So that measuring cylinder holds 100 mils. So I'll be doing that twice, and then pour that into the reusable pressure sprayer. And now it's time to carefully pour in our MV3 detergent. And you can see on the number 4 there on the tank, you'll see that level rise as I'm pouring that detergent into the tank. And that's our mixing ratio, 30 mils per cylinder. Okay, next what I'm going to do is disconnect both fuel lines from the car and the coupling or the return of the carbon clean machine, because we don't need that side of the fuel system anymore, because now the engine's going to run off the carbon clean machine. Okay, next I'll be using a different fuel adapter hose, and that's going to go on the inlet side of the fuel system. Now tighten the hose clamp up. Next I'll be connecting the red hose, which is the output hose coming out of the machine, so the fuel pump inside that machine, the carbon clean machine, is going to pump fuel to the engine of the car and connect that coupling to the inlet hose adapter. So now the car's engine would be running off the carbon clean machine. That's its fuel supply. And that there is our battery leads that we're going to connect to the car's battery. And by doing this, we're powering up the carbon clean machine. Okay, next I'm going to turn on the carbon clean machine and the start run cycle button, which starts the cleaning cycle, and then turn the timer and the fuel pressure regulator as well, and I'll crank that up to about 55 psi. You can see there the fuel and the detergent mixing together. Next I'll be taking the air cleaner out in the induction tube again. I'll probably be doing this another couple more times. Now I'll be removing the mass airflow sensor. During the first cleaning phase with the engine off, the system circulates cleaning detergent mixed with petrol through the components of the engine fuel system. This phase safely dissolves contaminants, gum and varnish deposits, including backflushing the injectors. Next, in the first cleaning phase, the air intake plenum, the throttle body and intake runners are cleaned using the reusable pressure sprayer and cleaning detergent. Now at this stage of the cleaning process, I'm only going to use half the detergent in that sprayer bottle, which is about 100 mils, because we're going to use it further on down the track. After watching this video, if any of you guys decide to get a carbon clean done to your engine, try and find a mechanic that's got a motor vac carbon clean system. These are honestly the best systems and they have very good cleaning detergents. I've used a few different systems over the years and nothing works as good as the carbon clean system. Now on the other hand, this system here also cleans your fuel injectors. Most of the machines out there on the market will not clean fuel injectors, or only clean the induction side of the system. So basically you're only getting half a job done. This is the true carbon clean system. And I'm not getting paid to say this, I've actually owned this machine for nearly 25 years. After removing the back seat, I'm going to gain access to the fuel pump wiring harness, and I'm going to disconnect that harness. And that's the harness right there. Now on other makes and models of cars out there, it's just as simple as just pulling out the fuel pump fuse, but on this particular make and model of car I can't do that, so I have to disconnect the wiring harness. Now the reason why I'm doing this is because if I don't and I go to start the car, we're going to have fuel pouring out of these disconnected lines. Okay, here comes the fun part. During the second cleaning phase with the engine running, the injectors, the intake and exhaust valves, and the tops of the pistons, the combustion chamber, oxygen sensor and catalytic converter are all cleaned. This safely dissolves and removes most of the soft carbon deposits at this stage. Okay, next I'll be checking fuel pressure, and it's roughly about 50 psi, which is okay. And that's our fuel pressure regulator. You can see by turning it either way, it raises and lowers the fuel pressure. Once the vehicle has reached its 15-minute runtime in its second phase, it's now time to shut the machine off to continue into the next phase of cleaning. Okay, now we're going to repeat the process all over again. So we're going to jam the throttle down to the 4 and turn the ignition key on. So this way we can get the throttle plate to open up all the way and start that cleaning process all over again. Now we can use what's left in the bottle, which should be approximately about 100 mils left, and we'll use that up completely. Okay, in phase 3 it'll be a heat soak phase. So we're going to let the machine run for approximately about 10 minutes with the engine turned off. And once the 10 minutes is up, we're going to lightly just crank that key for a split second just to turn the engine over 180 degrees so the other valves can get wet with the cleaning detergent. And then when that 10 minutes is up, it's time to start the engine again. In this fourth and final phase of the cleaning process, you can see clearly there's twice as much smoke blowing out the exhaust now than it was before. As you can see, a carbon clean really does work. Revving the motor is actually critical due to high and low points in the intake, which can cause the detergent to puddle, and also help the rear bank of cylinders to be cleaned on certain cars. And also you want to put those injectors through different rev ranges to simulate what they would normally go through when driving on the road. Today's modern cars are very fuel efficient with plenty of power produced from small capacity engines and also longer service intervals, but the trade-off is carbon buildup, and that's why it's really important to get a carbon clean done once a year on your car. Once the service tank has run out of fuel and detergent mixture, it's time to turn the engine off, disconnect our battery cables and the fuel lines. Reconnect our push lock fuel line, and then our plastic locking coupling. On goes the engine beauty cover, make it all look nice and pretty. And the last thing I do in the cleaning process, I put a fuel tank treatment inside the fuel tank, just to help keep the fuel tank system clean. And now it's time I'll reconnect the fuel pump. And once that's done, I can re-bolt the seat back down. And now it's time to start the engine and to make sure we have no fuel leaks. That's really important that we check that. And you can see on my fingers, it's nice and dry. And now I can shut the bonnet, but I'm not quite finished yet. Now it's time to run the scan tool over the car and make sure I haven't created any fault codes during this process. Sometimes when getting your engine decarbonised, the engine can run rough, and when it does run rough, it can create fault codes and the engine check light can come on the dash. Now sometimes these codes can be like an engine misfire or an oxygen sensor, things of that nature. So we want to clear those codes before the car drives out the workshop, because if it ever came back for any other reason down the track, it could send us down the wrong path of diagnosis. And that's why it's important for a mechanic to clear any codes. And as you can see there, no DTC, which means no diagnostic trouble codes, which is good. And the last thing I do in this cleaning process is take the car for a test drive, make sure it's running fine. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button not to miss out on any future videos. And I'll see you on the next episode of Red Pill Garage. Thanks for watching.